I mean, how to trust a person, or maybe how to not having a fear of commitment.
I feel you, Abhishek, and I had similar thoughts. I always couldn't quite understand how people were so easily entering relationships when that seems to be the most important.
That is a person, that is a human being. Why it is not easy for us to talk to anyone?
I think about this a lot, Abhishek. That's a great question. I mean, the best answer that I can give is we are afraid of other humans' judgments. And the more that judgment weighs onto our perceived reputation, chance of survival, future success, the more we are scared of that judgment, understandably.
But do you think that if I'm talking to someone, then I will gain confidence while talking to opposite gender? Do you agree with that point?
I would say yes. Anything you want to gain confidence in, if you do it, you gain confidence. It's just a matter of repetition and learning.
Hi Achill, how are you?
Thanks, Abhishek. I'm really good. And about you?
I am doing great, and good to have you here because your experience is in wide range, you can say. Because confidence, you are there. Relationship, you are there. Helping people with purpose, you are there. So you are all around. I mean, people, if someone like me want, something in life that I'm not good at, maybe related to confidence, maybe I'm not able to find the purpose, maybe not good with relationship, then I can come to you. So good to have you here. And I want to start with a question. Why have you selected a niche of South Asian men, not other? Because you are an Indo-German person. So why not German people? Why South Asian men?
Yeah, that was an iterative discovery, let's say. I started off with just offering coaching to the general masses. And as you say, I'm quite generalized, where I help people figure out their life in general, but the focus for me was always how to find the right partner, because that was the one issue that I was struggling with the most myself. But after I started the business, I started around 3 years ago, and in the beginning it was like pretty mixed, but very quickly it turned out that 50% of the people who came to me were Indians. And I didn't really pay too much attention to that fact. I just, accepted that. But after a while I realized that I was much more able to connect with those Indian clients, and much more able to affect change in those Indian clients. And I was able to also reach a lot more Indians online than I was able to reach any other demographic. So it dawned on me at some point that Indians, of course, have very specific problems that a lot of white guys don't have. And only then I started actually looking at myself and realizing that also my Indian heritage was part of what made it challenging for me. And that was so obvious, but it took me like 5 years to really uncover that fact. And when I started making content around this topic of how Indian upbringings, Indian parents, Indian culture, Indian norms affect your success as a single man in search of a relationship in the Western world, I started to kind of blow up on social media. And that's when I realized, okay, I found something that's unique, that I have a unique position to talk about, because I am half Indian and half German, so I understand both worlds, and that a lot of people really need. So that's when I decided to really niche down and just say, okay, I'm going to focus on this one particular archetype and help that person solve specifically the relationship and dating problems that they face if they don't want to get an arranged marriage, but actually find someone on their own in the Western world.
Fair enough. because previously in Indian culture it was like that parents will decide whom they want their partner. Maybe parents will decide about their children if they want what kind of a groom, what kind of a bride. But nowadays it has changed in Indian society as well. And in fact, in my case as well, parents have started, searching for a bride, but they were not able to find according to our choices. So now we, individual, independent people have to search, or maybe to talk with other people, have conversation, make a good relationship with the person, and then, think about the marriage thing. So it changed in India. So I think you have selected a better niche in the world, because Indians really need it. But here comes a very good point, that Indians are not very confident when it comes to confidence, because again, as we were dependent on our parents, that parents will find a partner for us. So we have not tried in our college to talk to people, which is a basic necessity, basic skill. So what do you think, why we are not able to talk to people?
Slightly disagree. I would say Indians can be very, very confident. When I was living in India, I was living there for a few years, and people struck me as very social, very open, very warm. It's just in that specific context of talking to someone that is of the other gender and someone that you're romantically attracted to, they tend to get quite stuck up. And then it gets heightened even more when they leave the cultural context that they're used to and actually come to the Western world. And then I can explain to you why it's so incredibly difficult, because it's already difficult for just people who grew up over here to make that step and overcome the fear and the awkwardness of expressing romantic or sexual interest. And for someone who's just coming from a different context where there's completely different rules and this topic is actually kind of a taboo, they feel paralyzed over here, because they are like, I don't know the rules. I know the rules back home. In India, the rules are pretty strict. I don't even know the rules here. It might get me into deep trouble if I overstep some of the rules. So they're extremely scared to make that step. But in general, I would say Indians are actually a confident people. I would say they can be extremely proud, and I am extremely proud of my Indian heritage. And I think more and more also with politics, we are experiencing a rise of Indian national sentiment. It's just that in that particular area of finding a partner on their own, as you said, they don't have a lot of experience. They're just not used to having to figure this out on their own. And then it's also a matter of comfort, because they can lean back and rest assured that the family will find someone. And so they never take that step to really fight and change and transform. You know how much work it is to change, to really change and learn something new. You won't do that if there's not a lot of pressure. And arranged marriage is still the predominant way for Indians to get married. And it's going to be that for still a while. And so a lot of people just lean back into that. And there's good reason for that. I think arranged marriage has a lot of benefits and makes a lot of sense in many contexts. So I think it's only possible for someone to learn that when they make a very, very clear conscious decision that they just cannot imagine getting an arranged marriage. It's not an option for them. Maybe they don't even have a family that could actually manage to do that, or they have parents that just say, hey, please do it on your own, we won't help you. And then if the pressure's on, yeah, they can learn. Often they come to me.
But do you think that if I'm talking to someone, then I will gain confidence while talking to opposite gender? Do you agree with that point?
I would say yes. Anything you want to gain confidence in, if you do it, you gain confidence. It's just a matter of repetition and learning. And it's not enough to just do it. For me, it's always important to take a moment and reflect. And that's something, of course, you shouldn't be doing right in the moment. You shouldn't be going into interaction saying, now, let me see what I can learn here. And you won't be there with your heart if you're trying to learn. In this conversation right now, for example, I'm talking to you, and I'm not trying to learn something right now. I'm just trying to express what's in my head. And that is practice, right? So we have a good conversation, we're recording it, some people get to benefit, but I also get to benefit from every single conversation, especially when it's with a stranger, especially when it's in a slightly pressure situation, because now I'm practicing my neural pathways to come up with things to say, relevant, hopefully, under pressure. I'll be better next time. When you invite me the next time to another podcast, I'll be even less nervous. I'll be even more clear in my responses. So every interaction is practice. You always get better.
You said that if I'm talking to someone, I should not learn from that person, whatever they're talking. More, I should express what I'm feeling, that you're saying, correct?
No, there I didn't express myself clearly. What I meant to say was, I don't go into social interactions focusing on learning something about how I can get better. I do focus on learning something about the world, about the other person. So that's certainly something I would suggest going in with, the intention to learn something about the other person, but not so much about improving yourself. Okay, that improvement is something that needs to be done later. It needs to be done, when you're studying. It's like a football game or a cricket match, for that matter. When the bowler is actually running, he's not going to think about how to improve that ball. He's just going to do it. He has to have practiced it thousands, millions of times, and then he's just going to do it. The same way you can prepare for the moment when you talk to a stranger, especially if it's a pressure situation like dating related or a podcast recording or a YouTube video. But then when you're there and you're doing it, don't think about improving, just do it.
Wonderful. And why do you think this is pressure related? I mean, we all feel pressure. I feel pressure. Everyone feels pressure. But why do you think that is coming? I mean, that is a person, that is a human being. Why it is not easy for us to talk to anyone?
I think about this a lot, Abhishek. That's a great question. I mean, the best answer that I can give is we are afraid of other humans' judgments. And the more that judgment weighs onto our perceived reputation, chance of survival, future success, the more we are scared of that judgment, understandably. Because, if you don't like me, Abhishek, and you post something really bad about me, it's a problem for me. It can harm me. If an authority, let's say, a mentor of mine, stops liking me, I have a problem. So I'm scared of talking to that person, because if I say the wrong thing, he might not like me anymore, and then I don't get his support. We learn this from our parents first, I guess. If our parents don't like us, it's a big problem. So as kids, we make sure we stay in the boundaries. So we can test our parents a little bit, but we must not piss them off too much. Otherwise, we're in deep trouble. And when it comes to people that we are attracted to, there's a few more layers. One is, it's extremely painful to be rejected by someone in that space of romantic relationships, because romantic relationships is a space where your whole personality gets evaluated. Okay, when you screw up with your boss, okay, you messed up your work, it's pretty bad to go into that office and face the consequences and have him hear that you screwed up and maybe you get fired. But it's just work. It's just like what you did in that office, which you might not even care too much about anyways. But when a woman rejects you, for example, that you really wanted to be with and spend your life with, she basically rejected your being. She rejected all parts of your personality, not just something superficial. Because it's such an intimate part of life, right? To build a connection on a deeper level with another human being. So we feel deeply rejected when a potential partner rejects us. However, this should not be the case when it is a person that doesn't really know us. So when you talk to a stranger, that person cannot really reject you because they don't know you. So there's no logical reason to be that afraid. But here we have to be aware as humans that we are not just logical creatures, that we have these hardwirings, many of them evolutionarily conditioned over millennia. And one of those is also that it can be risky to get sexually rejected, because we come from a time where we were living in tribes, and we come from a animal past, and animals are usually polygamous. In animal kingdom, 90% of species, there's one male who has access to all the sexual opportunities in the herd. And if you're not that alpha male, if you're not the leader of the tribe, then who are you to even ask anyone out? Right? So that is all part of our biological history. But of course we're not there anymore. We have to overcome that, and that's the work that needs to be done here.
So we have to make a lot of efforts now, because no one is alpha male, Nowadays, everyone is earning, everyone is doing their job.
Everyone is an alpha male, and no one is an alpha male, right? We could all be leaders at this point.
True that. I agree with that point. As you have already started a conversation on relationship, why do people nowadays, Gen Z specifically, going into situationships and all those kind of relationships where there is no commitment?
I think it's mainly technology. It's mainly the technology of birth control and technology of online dating, which makes it very easy to find a partner, switch partners. Makes it also very easy to delay commitment. I think the main reason that commitment was introduced is that it is the most secure way to make sure that the children are actually taken care of. That commitment makes sure that the parents are actually going to stick together when there's a child coming out of a sexual union. And when sex is separated from procreation, because we don't need to have children when we have sex anymore, then commitment becomes a little bit less necessary from that biological perspective. Now add to that changing gender norms, modern feminism, also encouraging women to not, dedicate their life necessarily to being mothers, but finding their own path and following their own dreams and building careers. It becomes a bit harder to match people up. And there's actually a beautiful book that I recently read, and I highly recommend it to everyone out there, by another mentor of mine, and let's say a role model almost, Orion Taraban, The Value of Others. And there he goes much more into detail about the economics of why committed relationships and marriages are becoming more and more rare. It's an economic phenomenon caused by technological shifts.
That is true. But the technology will grow. It is not going to stop. So how can we prevent that? People have to push themselves out of their comfort zone and talk to people. Otherwise, this technology will destroy a lot of relationships. But specific to India, because I have seen movies and all, I have not talked to anyone in a foreign country, but I've seen that divorces rate are high in other countries, not in India. But now it is increasing as well. Do you think in future, where this situationship and all these things are happening, that divorce rate will increase as well?
I'm afraid yes. And there's two things you can do. You can try to change that, or you can try to just prevent it for yourself. Changing the social trend is probably futile. I would say it's not worth trying to fight that. But what you can fight for is to offer an alternative in your own life. And that'll probably make you a bit of an exception. Already now in Europe, 50% of marriages fail. And it's going to rise in my eyes, and relationships are going to become more rare. And if you now want to have a relationship, you basically have to acknowledge that you're not mainstream anymore. You're gonna have to do some stuff that's just not mainstream. And one of those things is to really understand and rediscover the value of commitment, because I talked about commitment earlier from a biological perspective, but there are many more layers and many more benefits of commitment, and those are not really part of the current mainstream culture. We don't talk about that too much, right? Mainstream music doesn't talk about that too much. Mainstream culture doesn't really bring that out too much, at least in the West. In India, there's still quite a bit. And so I think modern Gen Z people and younger people who want to have a committed relationship will have to do some deep research and deep soul searching as well to understand why they want commitment exactly. And when they can communicate that very clearly to people out there, they're going to find other people who also really want commitment. And then those few people who still really, really want it can find each other and actually build committed relationships. It's going to be harder. And it's going to involve just accepting the fact that you're not normal anymore, and yet you are actually required to do stuff that is not normal. So that's one thing that I always tell people I work with who say, hey, like meeting people offline, that's not normal. I mean, everyone goes online these days. And I say, yeah, do you want to be normal? Look at what normal people do and how normal people end up. You don't want to end like that. So accept and embrace the fact that you're not normal anymore and that you have to do unnormal stuff as well.
So Achill, I always, I'm always fearful about commitment, and I really don't know how to, approach a woman, and if I, pick a wrong partner, then my life will be hell. And this is not only me, I think I've heard this a lot around me. So, I mean, how to trust a person, or maybe how to not having a fear of commitment.
I feel you, Abhishek, and I had similar thoughts. I always couldn't quite understand how people were so easily entering relationships when that seems to be the most important determinant of your future happiness. Like job and what you do for work is certainly very important, but who you spend all that time with in the free time, on the weekends, in the evening, who you sleep next to, probably even more important. And so, yeah, I also waited a long time until I started entering relationships. And before that, I was like, yeah, well, the people that I could be in a relationship right now, I don't want to be in a relationship with, so let me just wait until I find someone. And well, it didn't really happen for many years, and all that waiting at some point led me to a place where I was quite frustrated around 26, 27, and didn't really have a proper relationship. And so that's when I said, okay, I should probably create that optionality. And in a way, that was the moment where I started really stepping into my manhood and into my greatness in a way, because that's when I started saying, hey, I want certain things and I probably have to work for that. I can't just wait for it to happen. And so when you start going out and actually meeting a lot of people and proactively creating those options, you will very quickly realize that you are getting better at creating options. You're getting better at finding compatible partners. And then there will be that threshold where you find someone that actually fits really well and everything works out, at least on the surface. So you'll be curious to find out more. And that's when I started then entering relationships. And it was, pretty clear after a few months usually whether this could be something for life or not. And then with that mindset where you don't have to be in a relationship for years if you already find out quickly that it's not really fitting, and especially if you have the certainty that you can easily find other options after that, relationship is over, there's not a lot of fear anymore, because you just enter, check it out, you spend a few months, maybe you go on a trip together if you're not sure, and then it becomes clear, is this meant for both of you or not? And then it would also be a disservice to the other person to just stay in the relationship for much longer if you already know that this is definitely not going to work. Of course, as you get older, you will also be more willing to work on the issues. When I was still in that phase before 30, I was just getting started, and I thought, oh wow, now I know how to find a compatible potential partner. If there's a small problem, I'm not going to stick around in the relationship, but rather just end it and move on. But as I crossed the 30s, I started realizing that there will always be issues. And I like to say that for me, the issues got smaller as I got older, but there were still issues, and there are still issues in my current relationship. And that was another step of manning up, another big step for me to get into my, I guess, masculine energy, where I said, okay, relationships are work, and very, very challenging work, maybe the most challenging work that you can actually do in life. Because a partner is going to push all your buttons. They're going to really bring out the best but also the worst in you. And then just facing that and saying, okay, I'm not going to run away this time. Let me actually face this. Let me actually work through this. I think that is what relationships are uniquely suited for. And that's tying back nicely to what we said in the beginning, where we talked about the value of commitment. One big value of commitment is that it forces you to work through your shit. You're not allowed to run away. Someone is watching you, they're pointing out a weakness, or it's just not working, you feel incompatible, but you're committed, so you have to work. To make this work, you'll have to change something about yourself, you might have to lead the other person, you might have to just grow into a completely different being. And as long as you feel like you're getting better, as long as you feel like you're growing into a better version of yourself through that process, there's no reason to leave. That's a good reason to stay in that relationship, to stay committed and say, bring it on, give me more challenges, I like this.
But still, I mean, for that, let's say I liked a girl, then I have approached her, we are having a good conversation, it's going for 15 days. Now, after 15 days, I lose interest, or maybe I'm not liking about her OCD stuff, or there could be anything. So should I leave and again start searching? What's the process?
I would say 15 days is not enough to really know a person. I would definitely get to know that person better, understand her better. And yeah, it depends on many things. It depends on how ready you are for a relationship, most importantly. If you're very ready for a relationship, then that's not a reason at all to abandon this person. But if you're really not ready and you're just exploring in that phase where you want to just find out what you even really like, then these small things can definitely trip things off. Yeah, it depends a lot. And of course, it also depends on what other things you actually appreciate about that person. There's going to be a long list of things that you like, and another list of things that you don't necessarily like that much. And depending on how heavily those different items on the different lists weigh, you're going to make a gut-based decisions in the end. And that's the way it goes.
But still, I mean, do we need a list of qualities of something which we want in a person? Or should we, what I can say, in Shah Rukh Khan's movie, there are violins playing and all those things happen. So should we wait for that time period, when your oxytocin is releasing a lot? So what's the right process? Making a list and then finding a partner, or wait for these kind of moments?
I would say both. I would say make a list for sure. Not just a list, make a vision. Create a vision of the partner that you ideally want. And of course, you're not going to find exactly that person, okay? unattainable perfection. There'll be an ideal, but like with everything in life, when you have at least a direction and an ideal picture of where you want to be, you're going to be able to move in that direction better. But then while you're moving through life, you will have to take the opportunities that you get, and you'll have those moments where the violence will start playing. Even after you did the list, you did the list, and then you forget about it, and then you move through your life, and suddenly you see someone on the bus or in a cinema or in a party with your friends, and you're just blown away, and you don't even think about the list anymore, right? You forget about the list in that moment. But most probably, she's going to fulfill some of those things that you wrote down on the list. Most probably there'll be some of those things that you see in her. And in that moment, I would forget about the list completely and go with the violence and start dancing with her, right? Metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
Or literally, if it is in the right context. Both, I think this is not exclusive. I would definitely say that there needs to be a phase in a heterosexual man's life where he actually actively creates these options. There's going to be some people who don't have to do that because they just meet their college sweetheart and get married and everything is fine. But a sizable chunk of the male population will have to, at some point in their life, say, okay, let me actually go out there and meet a few more people than I would usually meet in my everyday life. And that might take a couple of years, right? And that's going to be a phase where you might think that it's not exactly organic, it's not exactly the violence playing, it's more like a little bit of grinding, but it can also be fun, all right? It's not necessarily violence, it might be more like metal music playing for 2 years straight, and you're just jumping from one party to the other, and you're going out and you're meeting a lot of friends and you're really in the outside. But when you go through that, you grow as a social being. You get that skill set of being able to connect with people quickly, filtering people out quickly, getting immune to rejection, and that skill stays with you. And then after that phase, you'll never doubt that you can meet people anywhere, anytime, anyone. And when you have that certainty that you can meet people anywhere, well, then you're never going to be scared that you will not meet the right person. It's just a matter of time, because there are so many right persons. After you go out and you actually meet a lot of people, you also realize that there's a lot of people who would be compatible with you. And it doesn't need to be that one specific person from your high school who's already taken. So many options out there. People are so diverse. You can be surprised, and it's lovely to be surprised as well. Not just to find someone who matches those criteria on your list, but actually someone who matches a few of those criteria, but then surprises you in things that you didn't even want necessarily from a partner, but now you realize that they're super beautiful.
Fair enough. Okay, let's create a plan. Let's say if a guy or a girl is the age 30, let's consider age 30, that person is single, and now this girl or a boy, first thing is how they can start contacting people or interacting with people, how or where they can go, and second is how they can build that confidence to talk to anyone, and third is what will be the roadmap. I mean, first they should start with friendship, then what they should check in a person to go into a relationship. 3 things. How to start a conversation, basically.
Yeah. To give a thorough reply, we have to start at home. This guy cannot just start going out and partying and talking to people and dating. He needs to sit down first with himself and actually realize what he really wants to do in life. What is his story? What is his goal? And how far can he just see himself as a hero of a certain story? I think every human and every man should see himself as a hero of a certain story. And that story needs to be clear. It needs to have a good a story arc, and in this case he'll probably see himself somewhere in the middle of that story because it's not yet concluded. And if you don't have that, then you're going to be dependent on the judgment of those other people, as we said in the beginning, too much. And characters will come and they can just break your back. The story needs to be independent of individual other characters. You're the only hero, right? You're the main hero in that story. So as long as you live, the story should go on and it should be exciting. And so that's the first step. Define a story for yourself, which usually means defining a vision, defining a goal, building a lifestyle that can also get you to that goal, building the skills that get you to that goal. And all of those things, most people don't really want to think about that too much. They are already on a certain path at 30. They've maybe already studied something. They're already stuck in a career, and they don't really want to change that too much, even though they don't often enjoy it. And that's a huge problem. I can't really help people who are just not happy with 80% of their life and then want those last 20% to be super awesome. So let's just assume this guy has made that, he's done that homework, and he knows where he wants to be in life. He's on a good track there, financially, physically, mentally, he's in good shape. Then there's 3 ways that he can actually go out and attract potential partners. The first one is nowadays online dating. Most common, you go on the apps. Usually it doesn't work that well, but people still use it. Everyone complains about it, but everyone uses it. And so, yeah, you can definitely find someone that way. For some people it works better, for some people it works less. I didn't like the process of putting up photos. I didn't like the process of writing something about me. I hate writing about me. So it didn't work for me. I didn't get good matches here in Germany, nor in US, and nor in India, actually. Even tried it in India for a few weeks. So that was not my way. Then there's a second path, which is just building a really fun lifestyle with friends and friends of friends. That works pretty awesome. Just the problem is that there's less volume because you can't be going to parties all the time and you can't be hosting your own parties all the time. And then there's basically 1-2 people in a month that could potentially match you, but then there's all kinds of reasons why that might not work, because they're already in a friend circle, they're already seeing someone else in the friend circle, or it's weird with the friends. So that's just a bit of a volume problem. And so I would definitely recommend that second approach, but I would most recommend the third approach, which is just meeting people offline. And that's something that you can really nicely combine with the second approach, because you can go with your friends and just say, okay, friendship is friendship, and that has nothing to do with dating. I don't want to mix that into my friend circle. But with people outside of the friend circle that we meet together by going to an event, going to a conference, going to a party, yes, I'm going to actually approach them. And that way you can meet hundreds of people every month that could be compatible. And that's what I did for about 5 years. When I was like 26, I decided I wanted to really take this seriously and find a partner that I can be happy with. And I said, I'm not going to stop until I found that person. Just going to keep going, and ended up meeting 3,000 people. 3,000 people, you take a lot of lifetimes to meet that many people just waiting for someone in the friend circle to come around. And so that's something that's possible when you have the confidence to walk up to people in real life. And that confidence, again, comes from having clarity about who you are, what you have to value, what value you have to offer, and why that value is actually amazing to the right person. And it also comes from practice. It also comes from having done it a lot of times, having the conviction that you know how to talk, you know how to communicate with people, you know how to express yourself. And once you know that, you're like, yeah, why shouldn't I do that with the person in the supermarket? And you'll learn the rules of engagement. You'll know how to talk to someone in a way that's appropriate for the context. You'll know how to escalate slowly without making it awkward. You know how to flirt with someone in a respectful way. That's obviously things that are not so embedded in the modern middle class Indian culture. But of course also Bollywood has a lot of references to that, and that might even work in India. I'm not even exactly sure. It doesn't work so well in the West. Bollywood flirting and slightly more cheesy approach to a romantic initiation doesn't work well in the West. But if you're in the West and you put your head around learning this, you'll take a few months and you can learn this.
But still, the question is how to initiate that conversation with anyone.
Okay, yeah. So now we've covered like all the preparation work, right? And what I want to tell you is that is like 90%, 95% of the work that needs to be done, is to just have the confidence to walk up to someone and to have the clarity which is necessary for that confidence about who you are, where you want to go, what kind of partner you want. That is 90% of the work, right? And most people, I'll tell you, are just asking how to initiate the conversation, but they haven't done that groundwork. So whatever I tell them, it's not going to work for them because they haven't done that groundwork properly. So let's assume someone has the groundwork, then how to actually initiate the conversation, how to actually start talking to someone. Well, in very trivial terms, the first step is to get the other person's attention. And you usually do that by looking at them or saying hello. And that moment, you can already write volumes about that. Okay, so what will very, very quickly show here in this very first second of an interaction also is, have you done that groundwork or have you not? Because if you haven't done the homework, if you're not yet clear in your own identity and purpose, then that moment will already be weird. That moment will already disqualify you. The other person will already realize that you're not extremely attractive, confident, not really worth spending time on, and everything else doesn't even matter. So for people who are new to this, I actually suggest saying just hello. Saying just hello and maybe adding an introduction. Hey, my name is Abhishek. Nice to meet you. There's millions of ways that you can say that. Like the tonality of those few words, you can change that, you can practice that, you can get that down to the point where you don't have to say anything else. And I'm a big believer in not engineering the rest of the interaction much. Okay, there's going to be certain phases in the interaction, but there's millions of ways how you can navigate through those different phases. There's not a fixed script or a playbook that you need to follow. What's important is that you say hello and are not afraid of the other person's rejection. And then you just say whatever comes to your mind. In a way, this is what we're doing here right now. When we're having this conversation, we're just talking to each other. And if I was to go up to someone that I'm attracted to and just talk like this, that's all I could hope for, because that means I'm saying what is in my mind and I'm not too nervous, I'm not too worried about the other person's judgment. And then what comes on top, of course, which I wouldn't do here, is that naturally I'm going to feel certain sensations in my body. There's going to be a bit of a tingle, right? There's going to be a bit of chemistry. And then that is definitely another thing that you can practice, but this comes later in the interaction. After a few minutes, you might really feel that, and maybe even after a few seconds, and then it's another skill to develop, how to express that in a tactful way and how to let that flow into your voice, into your communication, without it overbearing or making the other person uncomfortable.
Well, thank you, man. You have given me actually a path. Is not only for me, of course, for every adult, every young person who is struggling to find the relationship. I think if they can work on themselves, following these steps, and just after having that confidence that they initiate the conversation, then it will work. Because mostly people think that I have to impress her, and that builds the pressure, and then they rinse the conversation. I have a heavy question to ask now. How to find a purpose in life? Simple question, but I think it's very heavy. I'm still, finding out about this, and there is no one answer to this.
Yeah, that's huge. I'm fortunate to have had the possibility to try out lots of things, and I think that is the key for finding purpose. You have some big dreams, you have some ideas, you have some someday maybes, some maybe next life. Some of those ideas will be so crazy you just don't believe that this is something you could ever do, right? So the first step is to just list them all down. List all of these ideas for what you might be able to do with your life. And that was wild for me in the beginning. That included furniture design. I was always attracted to good design. I also thought maybe architecture. I really like architecture. I wrote all of this down. At some point I also thought of myself as a filmmaker. Put that on the list. I thought of myself as an entrepreneur, but more of a software entrepreneur. So I put that on the list. And it took me like a summer actually to wrap my head around this. Okay, I took a summer off after I was already in a PhD program at Yale University in the US. And after that first year of economics at Yale, I just realized that economics wasn't actually the right thing for me. At that point, I hadn't really thought about my purpose. I more or less followed a given path that was just like, be good at school, make sure you get to the best universities. And there I was, right? Kind of miserable, sitting in the library in the basement of Yale and just not liking what I was seeing in those textbooks. I was like, I'm never going to be able to build an economic model that can contribute to this stuff that's already out here. So I took a summer off, went to India, actually rented a small apartment in Delhi, a house caste village, and just sat there for 2-3 months with no appointments, nothing to do, and I just sat down and started writing. And I wrote down all these ideas, wrote down also a little bit about my history, about all the things that I'd already done. And that is the second element. Other than knowing what kind of dreams and wishes you have, you should also get to know yourself and what you've already done, where you've already been, get to know the past, the first part of your story until now. And then those two things together will inspire you to actually try out certain things. You look at your past history, what have you already done, what are the most important life stages you've been through, and then you look at those ideas, and some of that ideas will just not fit, right? Like for me right now, becoming an architect, it doesn't really fit well. I've done so much stuff. Architecture would be such a huge switch. So I dropped that. And that way, there's going to be one idea that's going to be on the top of your list, and then you just try that out. It's going to be scary sometimes, because that top idea will sometimes involve making changes. It might involve leaving the city you're in, or changing careers, quitting your job. I mean, there's no way around that. And you can always soften the blow. For example, in Germany, you have unemployment benefits. So whenever I got into that phase where I felt like this current job doesn't really lead me to my purpose is something else, I made sure that I spent enough time at the work to get the 3 or 4 months of unemployment benefits, and then I quit the job, got those 3 months financed, and in that time I said, I need to make this work. If it doesn't work, well, I have to get another job. Didn't work many times. But if you keep doing that, you're going to find something that works. And then you cross those things off the list. I was like, I want to be a software entrepreneur. Well, I tried it many, many years. I built many different products. I built many different apps. I built a lot of websites, more than I would like to admit. Nothing worked. Nothing was also extremely fascinating and extremely fun for me. I was like, yeah, I'm doing this because everyone is telling me to build a digital startup because that's the way to make money these days. But I don't really feel strongly for this product. And so I kept iterating, kept crossing ideas off the list. And at some point, the software products became, not so interesting to me anymore. And I started looking at coaching products, started looking at more personal cooperation with my clients. And that kind of worked. That kind of led me to where I am now, where I have a business and I'm helping a lot of people, not as many people as I could help with a software app, but much more than I would help with an economics textbook. So I'm very happy I've iterated my way through.
So
it took a lot of courage to
you can say that you
cut things off and to try things out.
You found your passion, you found your purpose in this coaching industry because you're able to help people.
Yes, but I also want to add that even on the different iterations, I felt like I had found my purpose. Right? So in the moment I started looking for my purpose and trying things out, I almost always felt on purpose. Because I was trying the thing that was on the top of my list. And your purpose, if it's not 100% clear, is to make it clear. And so by trying something out that you feel like this might be your purpose, you are already on purpose. And so with all these other projects that I did, I always felt like, yeah, this is the thing I should be doing, and I'm going to give it my best. And that's also required for you to be able to move on. Because if you didn't give it your best, if you didn't feel like this is the thing, then you might have failed because you didn't do it properly. But if you do everything, you really give it your best, you're like, this is the thing I should be doing, I'm going to put all of my energy into this, and you fail, then you know it's not meant to be. It wasn't actually your purpose, or it didn't even make sense, the idea was stupid. You can just move on, take the next idea, and so this way one idea will lead to the other, and of course they will all build on each other, right? The way I studied economics informs my thinking as a businessman now. The career that I started as a software developer and the websites and the apps that I built all helped me build a coaching product for my clients now, and I also understand my clients who are usually working in tech. So all of these things that I did, looking back, they all make sense.
Oh, fair enough. You have given answer to my life, to be honest, because I was always thinking that 9 years of corporate job, will this help me in future or not? But somehow that connects. Now I'm able to build a website or able to do some technical things on Zoom or something else because I had experience in IT. So yeah, that adds up. So Achill, now we'll play a game which is a fantastic game which is basically to have some fun. So game is like that. I will give you two names of the movie. It will be like or, DDLJ or Jab We Met, and you have to choose one. Okay, just the only thing you have to do. Okay, so let me give you two names of the movie. First is The Matrix or Inception. Choose one.
Difficult, but Inception.
Okay. Inception or Everything Everywhere.
Everything Everywhere at the same time.
Everything Everywhere or Doctor Strange.
Everything Everywhere.
Everything Everywhere or the Spider-Man.
Spider-Man?
Spider-Man?
No way. No.
It's still everywhere. Everything Everywhere, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Everything Everywhere or Interstellar.
Still, but it's close. Yeah, I think there's only one movie that would win against Everything Everywhere at the same time, but let's see if you get there.
Okay. Everything Everywhere or The Intern.
I think I haven't watched that.
Still Everything Everywhere or The Tenet.
I haven't heard of that movie.
Okay. Everything Everywhere or The Truman Show.
Everything Everywhere at the same time. I'm afraid that will just stay there.
Everything Everywhere or The Godfather.
Just for fun, The Godfather.
No. I think Everything Everywhere won because I think this is the most. I haven't watched it, but I think this is something which you like the most. What was the tiebreaker? I mean, which is the best movie apart from this?
So there's one I recently watched that I think is equally good. It's called Force Majeure.
Oh, okay.
Force Majeure, and yeah, that's just a very cringy story about a family, and it's a lot about relationships, and yeah, also about modern relationships. I like that a lot. And then I think there's one more that I really like that's also well known, In Bruges. In Bruges, another more like a crime story, but also slightly surreal. Really like that one.
I was coming to Pursuit of Happiness because I thought that you might have liked it.
I don't think so. No, I don't even remember it. Probably watched it, but didn't really make an impression. For the Bollywood freaks here, I also like Dil Dharakne Do. I really like that one.
Okay, all right. I mean, I have great time with you, to be honest. And lot of questions was personal. To be honest, I've not written it over there. Lot of question was personal because I'm 30, I'm single, and right now I'm in that stage where I'm covering that 95%. Then maybe I'll move to the other 5% where I'll initiate the conversation. So learned a lot from you, and thank you so much for coming to this podcast, saying yes, accepting the invitation. It was very easy to talk to you. It was not difficult to how to get Achill on the podcast. So thank you so much, Achill, for that.
My pleasure, Abhishek. Thanks a lot for having me. All the best, and I'll be happy to support you. Just reach out, just like all the other people out there. You find me on Instagram, Conscious Confidence. If you have questions about how to build confidence and find the right partner eventually, I'll be happy to help.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again, Achill. Thank you. Bye.